Hi, I'm Dana, and today I really wanted to talk about signs of autism in women or those assigned female at birth, or probably a bunch of non-binary people. I don't think that autism's dependent on gender. I think it's a lot about how you grow up and the sort of mechanisms that you use to cope, and I think there's a lot more to it than just your gender. But in the way of science and what papers and studies are released, it's very much focused on gender and the difference between men and women. So that's what I'm going along with, even though I don't necessarily agree with it myself. Before we get into it, I'm not a doctor, I am not a psychiatrist, I am not a psychologist, I am nothing. No, I'm me, and I'm doing my best, but I cannot diagnose you. I do not know if you're autistic or not. I just want to talk about some traits that sort of hinted to me that I might be autistic and prompted me to go for a diagnosis and try and figure myself out a bit. That's all this is. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I cannot diagnose you. I will not diagnose you. That's not what I'm here for. But we can have a chat about what traits we may share, what traits we have, what traits are out there. And you know, if you already know you're autistic, then it might just be a bit of fun, a bit of relatability. And if you're on the fence and wondering, it might be the thing that makes you go, oh shit. Because that's what a lot of these videos were for me. It was watching it and be like, oh crap, I thought that was my personality and it's an autistic trait, huh? Now, the first thing that really made me think that I was different from a lot of other people were the social difficulties I went through. I very rarely had more than one or two friends at a time. I very much struggled to make and keep those friends. The friends I had tended to be the louder girls in the class, the louder people, the people that would sort of talk so that I didn't need to. I really appreciated that in a friendship. And you know, I used my mum for that for a long ass time too. Anytime someone spoke to me, I'd just sort of look at them and be like, you gotta answer them then, they're talking to me. And I just had social difficulty after social difficulty. I'd think I was having a perfectly nice time just to have people suddenly be like, you're really annoying us, can you leave? There was just, you know, I really struggled to talk to people. I really struggled to make any relationships with people. I struggled to maintain any sort of friendship or relationship with anyone. And I still do to some degree. I've gotten better at it. I've learned some stuff. But in childhood and my teen years, it was an absolute nightmare. And alongside with that, so number one, social difficulties and also a lot of social anxiety, because I think that's what tends to follow along with social difficulties. You realise that you're having difficulties being social and then you start getting anxious about it because you know that it's going to come and you know that you're going to be bad at it. So you get anxious about it. And that was routine for me for my entire life, including now. I don't feel like I'm good at socialising, which means I get very, very anxious about doing it. But number two, again, kind of goes along with that, which is masking, because I feel like that's where so many of my social difficulties came from. I would leave a social situation, especially in my early 20s. I'm 25 now, and when I was like 21, 22, I had like a little group of friends at the time, and I left every situation with them being like, what the fuck was that? What was that? I didn't know who I was. I would react and say things and I was just like, who is this? Like, this isn't me. I don't know who I'm being around these people, but it's not me. And the more I thought on it and the more I talked about it to people and the more I looked back, I was like, I don't think I've ever been myself around someone else. Like, at like 23, 24, I was not sure I had ever behaved around someone as just myself and not masking, camouflaging and trying to be what I sort of subconsciously thought they might want me to be. Because it's better to be disliked for who you're pretending to be than who you actually are. And it's also, I went for people that I thought were cool. I was like, that's a cool person, I want to be friends with them. So now I've got to make them think that I'm cool enough for them to want to be friends with too. And I'm not. So I've got to pretend to be this whole extra person. And it happened incredibly subconsciously for me. It very much wasn't a choice of like, I'm going to mask and pretend to be a new person. It would just happen to me. And then I'd be like, I don't understand who I am. I don't understand why I behave this way. I don't know what's going on with myself. It was really, really scary, honestly, because I felt like I was completely lacking any idea of who I was. When I was around anyone at all, like any other human being, I just lost who I was, and it was terrifying. And it was such a relief to find out that it's masking and that lots of people do it. And that's how I've been able to sort of learn to let go of it a little bit. And it's still super hard, but that was definitely one of the main things for me where I was like, I don't think I'm like other people because I have no idea who I am when I'm around other people. Number 3 is eye contact, which sounds like it shouldn't be that big of a topic, but for me it absolutely is, because my relationship with eye contact has changed drastically, like through multiple different stages of my life. And I don't feel like that's something we talk about in like the autism community, is that things change. So as a child, I was quite okay with eye contact. I really enjoyed eye contact. I definitely made way too much eye contact because I was really fascinated and curious. I was like, why are we looking at each other's eyes? What's going on with them? You know, it was definitely more so with the people I was more comfortable with. Like my dad had really pretty eyes. He had really lovely blue eyes. And I spent hours and hours just like up in my dad's face, staring at his eyes like a total creep, honestly, looking back, but he was okay with it. I really, you know, people have such beautiful eyes and it's the doorway to the soul or whatever. And I was really fascinated, and it was definitely partially that I did not understand why everyone was looking at each other's eyes. I picked up on it. I saw that people were doing it, but I was like, why? I'm not gaining anything from looking at their eyes. I'm thinking like, oh, pretty eyes, wow, your eyelashes are so long. And I've missed the conversation. And then as I got into like my sort of early teen years, we moved to a different country where I didn't understand the language. So I learned to sort of study people's faces and to make a lot of eye contact to show I'm listening. I might not understand. I'm probably about to ask you to repeat it like 6 times, but I am listening. And I knew that how people show they're listening is making eye contact. So I again probably made way too much because I was like, I need to show everyone that I'm listening all the time. I'm always listening to you. I'm not understanding a fucking word, but I am absolutely listening. So I'm gonna make way too much eye contact. But by the time we came back to the UK, I'd had a lot of bullying. I'd had a lot of very awkward, humiliating moments, and just I'd grown, you know, my early teen years weren't an easy time, and I'd changed a lot as a person, and I didn't really care anymore about eye contact. I didn't care if people thought I was listening to them in high school. I just didn't really give a fuck. So I thought it was absolutely hilarious to sort of use eye contact to my advantage. Like I'd just make really creepy eye contact with people across the classroom for shits and giggles and things like that. But in conversations, I went out of my way to avoid eye contact, especially with friends. Like most of my childhood was spent sat on beaches or in hallways in school, sat like with our backs to the wall, wherever we were, not looking at each other while we chatted. And that does make me think, like, God, how many of the people I made friends with were also neurodivergent in some way? But we just wouldn't look at each other while we chatted. And I was perfectly happy with that. I didn't think it was, you know, I didn't think about it at all until quite recently. I just, you know, it's a great way to have a conversation. You can sit like that for hours. You're not having to think about everything you're doing with your face and with your eyes and all of that. So it was very, very nice. And, you know, progressing to now, I'm so hyper aware that I should be making eye contact, that I have no idea when or how long is appropriate to make eye contact, and for the most part just don't do it. It makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I completely lose track of whatever's being said to me while I'm making eye contact. Because I'm thinking about the eye contact, I'm thinking, okay, I've looked at them for like this long, so I should look over here, and okay, look back, now we're gonna look at them for this long. Oh, yeah, okay, they're saying something I should probably nod in agreement to. Okay, I can look away again now, thank God for that. Okay, and oh fuck, it's back to their eyes, you know, like I hate it, and I really don't know why people are so desperate for it. And, you know, there's a few people in my life that I can make relatively comfortable eye contact with, but for the most part, it makes me feel sick and I fucking hate it. Number 4 was another huge hint for me, and that's special interests. But we all hear about special interests, and it tends to be autistic male is really into trains or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or boats. And, you know, they're all perfectly fun and valid things to be into. I'm not going to shit on anyone for their special interest. You know, they're the stereotypical special interests, if I can get my words out, sorry, because so many people are interested in them. They're very common, and that's cool, it's fine, you know, I'm not trying to shit on anyone in the slightest. However, in my experience, for women, it tends to be that because our special interests are something more normal, we don't get picked up as it being a special interest. My entire life, I've had special interests in media, a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies, and occasionally musicians. And they would be everything to me, you know, like everything to me. And especially for movies and TV shows, I would then be like, okay, so there's this is my favourite actor in it. I'm going to watch everything they've done. And this is my next favourite actor that was in that, so I'm going to watch everything they've done. Oh, no, I really like this thing they've done, so now I'm going to watch the things that people out of that have been in, and so on and so forth, you know? And it's something that comes across as a little bit odd, but not autistic necessarily. It's just, oh, she just likes that actor. When, no, I'm absolutely hyperfixating and having an extreme special interest in this actor or the character they played or the show that they're in. And I really don't get how it wasn't picked up. You know, and in childhood, they kind of came and went a bit faster. Like, I remember at some point being really obsessed with Gareth Gates. And now I don't recall a single one of his songs. I was obsessed with ancient Egypt, and I'd still really like to go to Egypt at some point, but I'm not watching a documentary about Tutankhamun every week, you know? But then there's some things, like I started watching Doctor Who at the age of 8, and you can watch me info dump about Doctor Who in the link that I'll add over here, because I still fucking watch Doctor Who, and I'm never, ever going to stop watching Doctor Who as much as I might sometimes want to. You know, it's these extreme special interests. And so many autistic women that I've spoken to have been like, oh, I don't really have a special interest, but I have been watching The OC or 90210 or Gossip Girl for like their entire lives and know everything about it and know everything about every character and every actor and every plot point and every plot device. And I'm just sort of there like, yo, that's a special interest. But for young girls especially, when that special interest is unicorns or princesses or ponies, you know, there's so many special interests that girls can have that are just her being a normal, ordinary little girl. And she is. There's nothing abnormal or not ordinary about autism. We're just a little bit different. But, you know, it'd be nice if these girls and women and people assigned female at birth and non-binary people, it'd be nice if we were being picked up in childhood and being told, oh, you're not a freak and you don't need to go through decades of trauma. You're just autistic and you're fine. Be real nice if that was happening. But it doesn't, because we're just seen as ordinary little children. And we are, but we're not. You get me? And finally, number 5, is that we tend to have quite unique patterns of communication. And one website that I said specifically pointed out that it's idiosyncratic use of language. My understanding of this is that it essentially means we use language that's quite often copy and pasted. We use the same remarks, phrases and words over and over. We, at least, I'm saying we a lot, I mean I pick up a lot of things from TV shows and actors that I like and musicians. Like, I had a whole phase when I was like 13 where I was like, oh yeah, I can dig that, I dig that, because Ringo Starr said it and I love the Beatles and Ringo. And I've had that with so many things. I think, honestly, 90% of what I say is probably picked up from a TV show or a movie at some point. I can't remember quotes. I'm really terrible at remembering quotes, but I can accidentally use them relatively well. As well as like verbal communication, I feel that comes across a lot in my communication of sense of self, in the communication that I use, in the way I dress, in the way that I use my body language, in, you know, in who I am as a person. A lot of it's definitely picked up from like the media I consume and from people I've been around. And I'm sure for any of you that have watched my videos a lot, you will have noticed that I have a lot of words and phrases that I use all the time. Like, especially while I'm editing, there's times when I sit there and I like have to really stretch it out and edit to the exact second, because I'm like, this is the 4th sentence in a row that I've started with, you know, and it bugs me. Like, I'm sorry if you've ever noticed it in my videos and been annoyed by it. I'm annoyed by it too, but it's an autistic trait. Like, I'm relieved to find that out, because I thought I was just an idiot with no vocabulary, but it's an autistic trait. And, you know, the copy and paste language also comes across in a lot of other ways, in that, for example, I'm a massive fan of the show Ashes to Ashes, so I have an entire outfit that's like pretty much screen accurate to Alex Drake, including the exact jacket from the place that like manufactured the one for the show, because that's been a big one for me, is replicating fictional characters, you know? Like I said, with masking for a long time, I felt like I had no idea who I was. So I was grasping at straws, and it's like, well, I don't know who I am, but but I know who Alex Drake is, I know who the Doctor is, I know who all of these characters that I love and admire and would like to be like, I know who they are. So if I just dress like them and talk like them and act like them and cut my hair like them, then I'll be like them and I'll know who I am and I'll be cool and I'll be suave and sophisticated and graceful and glamorous. I don't know who the fuck I think I'm gonna become. But, you know, like, it's settled down a lot for me now. Like, doing these videos has helped me immensely to, like, figure out who I am without these outside sources. But it's still very comfortable to go back to it sometimes, for one. And it's also just, it's so difficult to find who we are. It's so difficult to know what's going to be, like, socially acceptable and what isn't. I can look at a show and be like, well, they were socially accepted. I'll be like them. You know, it definitely takes me back to a lot of my high school years as well, when I had friends being like, why are you copying me? And I'd be like, I'm not copying you, this is how people are. Because my one fucking perception of how people behaved and how people dressed and how people did their makeup and whatever else was from my one friend. They were the stereotype and the archetype of a normal person to me. So I assumed what they're doing is what everyone does. So I've got to do that. And then suddenly it's not what everyone does, it's what they do, because they've figured that out for themselves. So I just look like a creep that's trying to become them. So yeah, they're my little points. They're my little, here's some signs you might be autistic if you're a woman, even though I absolutely cannot and I'm not diagnosing you. I'd love to hear any comments or whatever you have to say, or any opinions down in the comments below. If you've experienced any of these, any that I haven't mentioned that you've experienced that you think maybe I should do another video about, I could totally do another one of these. I've actually really enjoyed this. Yeah, I always love hearing your thoughts and opinions. Please do comment them below. If you've enjoyed the video, you could give it a little thumbs up and maybe subscribe if you'd like to see more. I feel very awkward asking people to do things, but I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers, which is insane and crazy and so exciting. So if you did want to subscribe, you could be my 1,000th subscriber. Weird, thank you. What? So yeah, if you wanted to subscribe, now's the time. It's always the time you should subscribe. See, I'm not good at this and I'm awkward, so I'm gonna go. But whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, day, week, month, year, and I'll see you again in a few days.